consent agenda from 2/19. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Langston,
Second.
second from Commissioner Ashbrook. Any objection to the motion? Motion carries 4-0. Just for everybody's information, Commissioner Lowry is up in Washington D.C. today, so he won't be meeting with us today. Building department update.
Good afternoon. Mo Creel, Building Department Building Inspector. Okay, let's see. First, I'll bring you up to date on our permits. So far, we have sold 42 demolition permits this since the storm. We've sold 203 residential re-roofs, 28 commercial re-roofs, 184 residential remodels, 12 commercial remodels, 31 temporary power poles, 74 electric service repairs, 10 accessory structures, and 4 new single-family residences. Temporary structure permits 18, and increased cost of compliance letters 13. That's having to do with the 50% FEMA business. The permits are beginning to creep in. People are beginning to settle with the insurance companies, so we're going to be getting more and more applications. I ordered something I never thought I'd do. I got about $28,000 worth of plan review equipment, so big 4x5 monitors. I got 2 full-time plans examiners that are not necessarily here, but everything will be an email to them. They're able to go through this very quickly because it's easy to see when it's that big. And I think you'll be pleased with what you see coming out of that. We're going to be very strict on our building code compliance. We're not going to back up on anything on that because we don't want to see us ever get in a position that what we did failed when we have an event like we did before. Jim, I don't know were we to deal with anything on this cost estimate for FEMA at this point.
We can brief the board on it. Basically what we're doing, we're working with Mr. Darrell Walker with FEMA. He was a representative that's been in a few meetings in reference to the damage assessments that we're doing for the city. The plan is to get started next week. Some of the information he's requested from us is to determine the square foot value. He gave some examples from Lynn Haven and from the city of Panama City. So talking with Mr. Creel, we've kind of found a hybrid on that. And they've got to determine they've got to go in and do assessments on everything over 50%. So we're asking for them to do assess the stuff over 50%, but not to do any more than we have to as far as meeting our requirements from the Department of Emergency Management. As you recall, we had had the first reading of the ordinance, which will be back before you for adoption on the 19th. But we do have to do some requirements for emergency management, but we're trying to make this as least intrusive as we can for the citizens of Port St. Joe.
Yeah, I think we had some suggestions that we might want to go with anything over 30% you need to bring up to code. That's cost prohibitive to our citizens, and it's not something that I want to be on board with. 50% is bad enough. We're looking at potential valuation cost of $150 a square foot for a residential structure, and if you had to build one today, you'd be lucky to get by with that. Commercial, we're looking at $180, and that's mirroring what Lynn Haven's done on part of it, what Panama City's done on part of it. We just want to make sure that our citizens are getting the best that they can get out of it, and we don't want to. I'm never going to tell anybody got to tear his house down. If they want to make that decision, I'll give them information to make that decision, but that's up to them. I'm not going to do that. Anybody, any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions?
Yes. Anybody know of anything coming up in the meeting that I need to be here for?
I know of no, sir.
You go just tell me what I need to do and I'll enforce it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, next item on the agenda, Commissioner Ashbrook.
The interlocal agreement, this is really what I want to do is kind of kick this over to our attorney. He did a little bit of research on whether or not the sunsetting of the CRA would affect the expansion area of North Port St. Joe.
Yes, Commissioner. Ashbrook, last night I spent a few hours reading the material, as well as this morning I called former city attorney Tom Gibson, who referenced me to Russ Schultz as being primary. I spoke to Mr. Schultz, also spoke to Gail Alsobrook. Although they provided somewhat conflicting information, the ultimate outcome of what they described as their intent was for the expansion area to continue longer than the original area. So then I referenced back to the resolutions and ordinances. In certain places in the resolutions and ordinances, you can understand their position. In certain areas in those resolutions and ordinances, you could understand why I would be confused because of the language used. So at this time, I cannot provide a legal opinion for the board to rely on. I would need more time to review this. I've got to go back and try and look through the minutes and continue to do some research on this matter before I can give an opinion that the board could rely on one way or the other.
And that being said, you know, I think I made it clear yesterday that if I can't have a guarantee that the expansion area will not be affected by this, I'm unwilling at this time to motion for a vote. I'd like to get more information, whether it be, you know, a signed affidavit by Carol Westmoreland or whoever we can get to tell us definitively whether there'll be a negative effect.
And I spoke to counsel for the League of Cities, and smart on their part, they won't give an opinion. They don't give an opinion because then legally they're obligated to that opinion. What they can do is give insight and suggestions, and I anticipate that should happen this afternoon or tomorrow from counsel. Okay. Carol's not an attorney as far as I know, so I spoke to their counsel, David Cruz, today about the issue, and I expect to hear back from him no later than tomorrow, according to him. But I, just so the board is aware, I put in quite a bit of hours on this in a short amount of time. I'm working diligently to try and resolve the issue.
I'd just like to say one thing is, I've never heard them described as being one. Since I've been on this board since 2011, they've always been separate. Always. And I think the people on the north side want to know if they were in this thing, and how come they're not getting the money they should be getting all those years? If it's all one, just an expanded area. So like I say, I've never heard anybody say they were one until last night. It was brought up. Never, never. So I just I don't understand why now they're one, and all these other times they've been two. I don't understand that part, but I agree with David. I don't want to do anything that will cause the CRA to go over, not go on the north side after they waited so many years to get something going. I mean, that wouldn't be fair. So I'm in agreement with David that we need to do something with this at a later date. I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to go away. I've stated my feelings on this several times, so nobody's surprised at how I want this to go. But at this time, along with David, I think we need to make sure. I mean, I'm sure, really. I think it's just a way to kick the can down the road again. I'm really amazed that it was even brought up that they're one, and I could be wrong, but I've never heard them say they're one. If anybody in this room's ever heard that, please speak up, because I've never heard it. It's always been two different ones. Come on up, I want to hear what you got to say.
Actually, I have heard that. If you recall the dust up that we had with the previous CRA, and before it turned over to this board, I called Warren Yeager and I talked to him at length about the pros and the cons of a CRA. And he talked about the expansion and that it's one. We talked about the amount of money that was spent on salaries and master plans and all the stuff previously. But, you know, the positive thing was with that came change. And it's been good change. So, I hate to tell you, but some of the county folks already know this. Thank you.
Thank you. David, what you gonna do here?
Well, let me say
Let's
something.
see
Go
what
ahead.
they have to say.
I would like legal advice, and I think we need to back up and maybe see what's going on with that before we make any decision. But I also want to say this: the total amount of tax increment funds generated by the CRA was less than $60,000. Less than $60,000 were invested in Northport St. Joe in the 10 years by the Downtown Redevelopment Agency. So that's what I'm talking about. I mean, we can kick the can down the road. We can continue to kick the can down the road, but that's $6,000 a year that's been given to Northport St. Joe. And with this agreement, we'll see more money from the county, and not just only Northport St. Joe, but the entire community. But with that said, I would like to take the legal advice and see what's going on with CRA before I make a decision.
Okay.
Commissioner Hoffman, do you have anything?
Well, I think what we have before us is a very complicated issue that goes back years, not months. And you know, even our attorney, our city attorney, is perplexed with how it came to be. I probably know the least of anyone sitting up here. But I will say this: I think we're at a position in our city to where we can make the best of the situation. And that's why I am a staunch supporter of extending the CRA. But at the same time, I think we're at a spot where we can make adjustments to what we have done in the past in the funds that we have sent to the expanded area, Northport St. Joe. I have no idea why in the past only $20,000 a year was sent. I didn't have a part of that. I think that there needs to be immediate increase, something that's fair and equitable, to focus on the projects that we've all supported in MLK and the entire area of the expanded area. So I think if we focus on joining forces and support extending the CRA, but at the same time we open dialogue to suggesting what is a fair amount. I think everyone agrees 20,000 is not enough money to get much done at all. But if you then start talking about let's create what should have been created years ago and have an actual board that is coming up with the ideas, the ones that are safeguarding the funds, and I think we have people that are more than willing to do that. They're involved now and come up with a figure that we can shift over, and that way you're still generating $11 million from the county and the city in a 30-year time frame instead of 2.09. I mean, it's easy math. Take the 11 million and let's make this work where we prioritize the expanded area and we divert funds to that area. It's my understanding it was just a proclamation or I forget what the word was that they created to allow the 20,000. Well, let's revisit that and start focusing on areas outside of just Reed. I know that Reed Avenue, we've done great things down there. There's still some buildings, there's still properties that need a lot of help. But that doesn't mean that we can, that we aren't allowed to look at the expanded area. But we can't do that if we sign off on some deal that only generates $2 million. And to have the mindset that we're gonna have all this new money available that we didn't have in the past, I don't think that's accurate. The only way to get the money and have it as an absolute is if you support extending the 30-year CRA, then you know you're going to collect $11 million in 30 years.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it needs a motion or not, but I would suggest. Oh, go ahead.
Based upon what Langston said, what our mayor said, the baseline funds, based upon what has happened with the hurricane, is going to change the amount of funds that's going to be coming in anyway. So the city's going to end up getting a lot less from baseline. But how do you figure in the amount then that would go to North Port St. Joe based upon that? Because the hurricane has had some definite issues with how now the money is going to be distributed. But 3 years ago, we came to the CRA and we started getting funds, but because we was trying to redevelop North Port St. Joe. The first year they gave us 15, next 2 years was 20,000. That was the only money allocated in 10 years. So, you know, we need to answer those questions as to now you got a new baseline figure based upon what the hurricane has done. And it's going to change the amount of funds that's going to come to the city. So those things need to be looked at.
Well, what they did was Bill Kennedy ran the numbers, and he held it at no growth increase at all for 5 years. In the year 2025, he showed a 2%, I believe, 2% increase. And that's where the numbers come from, that when I referred to 11 million. And I think he did a fair job on that. He showed no increase at all till 2025, and then just marginal increase. I would argue that the increase will far exceed the numbers that he used in the calculation, and it still comes to, well, quite a bit over $11 million is the projected amount, not the 4.4 million that was reported earlier.
But that would be reassessed, though, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, we can't really predict the future, how fast we're going to grow. I can tell you that the St. Joe Marina is about to announce an expansion, something that I think we're going to be excited to hear. That alone will generate quite a bit of more funds because they are also in that CRA area. So if they build a hotel or restaurant, redo the marina, those are items that are going to elevate the amount that's coming in.
Well, in the past, they have not used any of that for North Port St. Joe.
I agree with you.
However, now, I want to go back to this right here. Someone says that it was expanded earlier. Bo, you're right. When we started out with this North Port St. Joe Project Urban Coalition, no, it was not together. It was not one. It was divided. We had ours and they had the other one on this end of time. And we didn't get no support from the redevelopment. So that's what's on the table.
Thank you. All right, David. We beat this thing up.
I'll go ahead and make an official motion to table this until we get information from our attorney.
All right, we got a motion.
Somebody's keys in the yard.
I second.
We have a motion. State your motion one more time for me.
To table this until we get the information regarding the outcome of the results of a sunsetting CRA. Will it affect the extension? We need that advice from our attorney.
All right, we have that motion from Commissioner Ashbrook. We have a second from Commissioner Langston. Any opposition to the motion? Motion passes 4-0. We'll table it for now. All right, Mr. Attorney? We'll have a time for the citizens to speak at the end of the meeting. There's a time for the
You ignored
citizens.
when I had my hand up the last 3 times you asked for the questions, so I just want to clarify.
We're done with this for now. We'll talk to you at the end of the meeting at the time, but we're gonna go on with the other business of the city right now. We will come back to it again, and when the citizens' time to speak, I promise you, we'll let you speak. Won't be a problem at all. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before the board is Resolution 2019-03. This resolution relates to showing continuity with a particular bill before the House 0191 for obtaining disaster relief funds. with the authority of the board, I would like to read this resolution and then, if the board is so interested, adopt this resolution.
Motion to read the resolution.
All right, we got a motion, Commissioner Ashbrook, have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hopper.
Resolution number 2019-03, a resolution of the City Commission for the City of Port St. Joe certifying its support for House Bill 0191, Northwest Florida Rural Inland Affected Counties Recovery Fund. Again, to the board, this is essentially showing continuity for House Bill 0191 and the related companion Senate bill for the passage of disaster relief funds.
I have a question for the attorney on this. Just to be clear, we're supporting a bill that is a fund for inland affected counties, is that correct? And I'm not saying we shouldn't, because we're gonna need their support when it comes to be our turn, but will we see any direct effects from this?
That is the intent of 0191, as I understand it, is that it would benefit the City of Port St. Joe if it were to be passed along with the companion Senate bill. Ultimately, this again is just showing continuity with the other affected areas.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt.
All right, got a motion, have a second?
A second.
Second, Commissioner Langston. Any opposition to the motion? Motion passes 4-0.
Nothing further, Mayor.
That's all you have for us? All right, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. The first item we have is in reference to the rezoning in the Martin Luther King corridor. It will be heard before the planning board on the 12th of March at 2 o'clock here at the Ward Ridge Building, and then it will come before the City Commission for our first reading and consideration on 3/19 at 12 o'clock.
Any questions, anybody about it?
The next item is a reference to the community garden Commissioner Langston's been working on. I want to talk to you today about it.
It's myself, Ms. Kim, Ms. Claire, Ms. Inez, we've been working on the community garden. We put together a small budget. I hope Ms. Jill's out there. She's gonna come up and explain it more to you.
Come on up.
Hi, Jill Beebe, and this is Kim Miller. We're two of the members on the new Community Garden Committee, and we have been having some meetings. The information Kim's passing out, I needed one of those. Summarizes where we've gotten. We do have Commissioner Langston, myself, Kim Miller, Eddie Fields, who will be joining us. Inez Matthews has been part of our committee, and Claire Morris. What we are trying to do, what we have in mind to do, is develop a community garden that has 24 raised beds, some plots for things that can't be raised in rows like corn, a small grove of fruit trees, a butterfly garden with benches, and we want to work through the churches and other nonprofits to identify folks in need of produce and put together small teams that could work with them to cultivate their plots. We intend to charge a nominal fee for the use of the plots, mostly to get people's buy-ins. There will be some rules. We've relied heavily on information from Apalachicola that has a very successful community garden going. One of the main rules is if someone neglects their plot for 4 months, the plot can be released so that it doesn't just sit there in weeds. The other thing we talked about is having a shelf where whenever you grow a garden, you always get not enough of one thing that you want and way too much of other things that you want. So we envision a place out front where people can put extra produce and others can come by and get it. Then one of the important things when we were going over the information, what we found a quote from the American Community Garden Association that says, "Community gardens grow community." And that's one of the things we want to do. This is kind of our plan for the community garden. These would be raised beds, corn, fruit trees. The butterfly garden would be outside the fence, sort of in an inviting area. This is Peters Park right here, and the walking path is here. The sidewalk goes along here, and so people would be able to come to the butterfly garden, sit there, enjoy it. The gates are right here. And if you'll notice this, we threw this in, it's not part of our mission statement, but it is in a way because I didn't read that mission statement, which I should. The mission of the Port St. Joe Community Garden is to provide nutritious produce to those in need, bring residents of all generations and areas together, and to beautify our community. And part of that is extending this to the Port City Trail. And everybody on the Community Garden Committee thought that it was an important function, although we didn't include it directly in our mission because we know that's kind of outside of this area. So we also have a task list. In reviewing all of our tasks, we've decided that the most ambitious timeline was to have things ready for a fall planting. We would have loved to do a spring planting, but we think that's beyond the reach of our small committee. And one of the things that's on our task is for Commissioner Langston to approach the city for whatever help we can get from the city. If you'll notice, we have suggestions for other groups that might be volunteers and suggestions for potential funding. We want to seek grants and donors. Those citrus trees perhaps could be done as memorial trees, the benches could be done as memorials, things like that, and to seek in-kind resources. So that's where we are, and Commissioner Langston can tell you what we're looking for from you. And the last page is just a list we've generated so far of the trees we want to get, in case anybody wants to dedicate one, and the native plants for the butterfly garden. So, any of you have any questions for us? We're in the early stages, but.
How can the city help now? And let me say thank you to Commissioner Langston for championing this, because I think we're all on board. I know I am. So we just need to know, what do we need to do today to get things rolling?
We need the funds for insurance, first thing, right?
How much is that?
I got a quote from Andy, but it was like before the hurricane, and it was $500 a year for the insurance. And I talked to people with St. Joe Company, and they said that we need that insurance, liability insurance, before we get started. So we probably need that before we start planning. I talked to Commissioner Quinn. He has his inmates out there gonna clean it up. They're gonna, it's the trees that's down, they're gonna cut them up, put them outside, let them get picked up. We're gonna try to get the fence fixed. And once we get that, I think I talked to John a while back about some equipment to help till it up and clean it up real good. I think you said something about, at one of our meetings, you said something about getting the soil tested, or did it get tested?
No, I'm waiting for it to dry out.
Okay, so
But
Good luck.
the soil for the parts that are going to be in ground should be tested, and I do, Ray Beaudry, the Gulf County Extension Director, is going to get the soil tests done for us. But our big needs are going to be, well, we talked about maybe repurposing some of the lumber that got structures around the city and county that got destroyed by Hurricane Michael. We might be able to use some of that lumber to construct the beds. And I sent a query to Sandy Quinn about getting mulch from all the trees that were mulched up, not to use directly in the beds, because I don't know how clean it is, but to use on pathways. And I think he was looking into that for us.
If we bought the lumber, could you get started?
If
And we
had
bought the
insurance.
mulch. I mean, I commend you for trying to find scrap lumber, trying to find free mulch. But I think this is a project that the community would embrace, and I would support purchasing those things for this group.
Well, the one advantage of using the scrap lumber and the mulch, besides the savings of money, is having something really positive and beautiful come out of the hurricane. And I'd like to see that happen if it could, but if it can't, I'd be happy to take the money.
I appreciate you, Ms. Kim and Ms. Jill. I mean, they're working real hard on this. I'm telling you, they stay on me. I get text messages, emails, and can't miss any meetings. I got to be there, so I really enjoy it though. When it started, I never thought that it would. It's fun, and I'm enjoying it. I would love to see it flourish. Apalachicola has a beautiful community garden, and I think it'll be a good thing for our community. Yeah, I think it really would.
And one important point is, we talked early on about the name of this community garden. The name of this community garden, the committee agreed, is the Port St. Joe Community Garden. This is not the North Port St. Joe Community Garden. We want to be one city.
Mr. Beebe, we thank you.
Do we have some money in the Parks and Rec that we could shift over to this committee now, or they could at least get started on some things?
We'll definitely take a look at it, and Ms. Beebe, if you'll let us know what you need on there, we'll definitely.
All right, we're working on the budget. We wanted to have a complete budget for today, but we didn't get there.
One thing Commissioner Langston mentioned was the insurance on there. If you have all the information that you need on the insurance, get with me, Commissioner Langston, we can figure out the insurance portion. We can get that moving immediately.
I appreciate it, Jim.
I was going
Thank
to
you all.
mention to Ms. Jill, if you could come see me at Public Works, we may have a lot more than you think we've got as far as tailings and mulch as it relates to different types of compost. So might be beneficial. All right.
Commissioner Langston, could you use the insurance right away? I mean, when are they going to require that? Because I'm prepared to make a motion for the, we can fund $500.
Let me try to get another quote to make sure that it's good, and then I'll just bring it back to the meeting the next meeting, and then we can do it from start from there.
I won't be at that meeting, but I show my full support.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Right.
Appreciate it.
The next item we have is a reference to Hurricane Michael update. FEMA Disaster Recovery Center still being utilized by the fire station. We have an extension currently through the end of the month. They have committed to being here as long as the board needs them here at this point. Right now, we also have a mobile unit that'll be on 401 Peter Street at the Washington Gym on Mondays and Tuesdays from 9 to 4. And they will be back at the fire station Wednesday through Friday, 9 to 6. And 9 to 1 on Saturdays at the fire station. So it'll be two different locations, Monday and Tuesday at the Washington Gym, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the fire station. Debris removal, we're still working on the current deadline, March the 15th. We need everybody to get everything they can out to the road. March the 15th, that deadline is looming fast. Any questions for staff on Hurricane Michael?
Jim, pertaining to the Disaster Recovery Center, did the supervisor elections go ahead and say that there will be one voting precinct? It will be at the supervisor elections office?
Yes, that is correct. We have, the election site will be at the supervisor elections office. Due to the uncertainty of what we will have as far as the disaster relief center, so yes, we went ahead and made that decision. And it's actually been put on our website and sent to the newspaper for. Any other questions? On the new business, July 4th fireworks, at our last meeting, the board asked me to talk with the TDC to see if there was any additional funds available for fireworks. Answer I was told was $5,000 is still available. That's all they can support this year based on the reduction in budget this year. So we have $7,500 in the city budget, $5,000 for TDC. Staff recommendation would be to move forward with the $12,500 fireworks show. Last year we did $15,000. I don't think you'll see much reduction this show, so that would be our recommendation.
That would be my motion.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hoffman. Any opposition to the motion? Motion passes 4-0. All right.
The next item we have is a reference to SBP presentation. I believe the mayor and Commissioner Ashbrook actually attended a conference in reference to this, and we have someone here to give you a presentation today. I believe her name is Anya.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Thank you all for welcoming me, Commissioners, Mayor Patterson. My name is Anya Conlon. I am SVP staff lead for the deployment operations we have going on here in Florida. And I'm here today to offer assistance and advice on accelerating recovery here in Port St. Joe based on what SVP has learned in over a decade of working in communities impacted by disaster. For those of you who may not be so familiar, I want to give a brief background on SVP, who we are. We were founded back in 2006 following Hurricane Katrina by a couple who came down to volunteer. They thought they would be rebuilding homes quickly, but when they landed on the ground 6 months after the storm, they found that not only had recovery not begun, but homeowners were being fed out of tents. And they had no predictability for when the recovery effort would start. They couldn't sit by and let this be. They quit their jobs as a lawyer and a teacher, and they started SVP to try to improve the recovery system and get communities and residents home faster. And so long story short, they founded SVP since 2006. We have grown into a nationally recognized organization that focuses on comprehensive long-term disaster recovery. We're currently serving in 9 different communities across the United States. And we exercise and enforce our mission through 5 interventions. First and foremost, we rebuild. We've been doing so for over a decade now. We certainly get our hands dirty, but that's not the only thing that we do. We also share. So we share what we've learned over our 10 years through education materials, through trainings and support for nonprofit organizations and for residents. We advise. So we advise local governments on best practices to accelerate recovery for their communities. An example of that would be the mayor's convening that we held back in November, in which we brought together mayors from Florida and mayors from Texas to discuss challenges and solutions to rebuilding communities after disaster. Or we advocate, so we think big and we push ideas to improve disaster recovery for all Americans. And finally, we prepare. So we help communities and residents to better understand their risks and to mitigate damage from future disasters by understanding what they can do through training, e-learning, and accessing funding for mitigation activities. A brief picture of what we've been doing here in Florida since Hurricane Michael. We had a team on the ground on the Monday following the storm. They set up operations in Apalachicola and began serving residents here in Port St. Joe. We worked closely with organizations that included Conservation Corps of the Forgotten Coast, Christian Community Development Fund, Oak Grove Church, St. James Church, and the First United Methodist Church to provide mucking, gutting, mold remediation, and educational materials to residents here in Port St. Joe at no cost. And since that time, and with the help of a number of volunteers and local community groups, we've been able to muck and gut 39 homes. We have had hundreds of volunteers serve over 3,000 hours with our teams, and we provided educational materials on navigating the federal assistance process, on avoiding contractor fraud, and on proper techniques for mold remediation to over 300 residents at no cost. So the reason I'm here today to speak with you all is because SVP has worked in communities across America, and we've seen common themes that can lead to a quick and effective recovery in a community, but also that can cause delays and hardships. In those communities that we've seen a quick and effective recovery, we see community leaders that quickly rally support for recovery. They set clear goals that residents, local nonprofit organizations, church groups, funding agencies, and governments can all rally around. They advocate and they gather resources that the community needs to recover. And they build a clear path for recovery, assign responsibilities, and set clear benchmarks for whether we are ahead or behind on meeting those goals. We've also observed the tremendous human toll that comes when recovery is delayed. In New Orleans, we are still rebuilding homes that were damaged 13 years ago from Hurricane Katrina. On average, nearly half of the clients that we serve have been impacted by contractor fraud in some way. And we see state and federally funded programs are slow to get up to speed, leading to uncertainty and additional suffering. One, for the example, in New York City after Superstorm Sandy, it took 2 years for the federally funded program to rebuild their first home. And by that point, nearly half of the applicants had dropped out of the program, of which there were almost 10,000 because of frustration and delay. And finally, Harvey and Irma recovery programs, that was 18 months ago, have yet to begin rebuilding their first homes as well. So our call to action for this group is that it doesn't have to be that way, and recovery can be led from a local level. Members of the City Commission are in a position to lead Port St. Joe back better and more resilient, and the community must make housing a priority, including assisting residents who can't afford to fund recovery on their own. We believe that the most important thing that local leaders can do after a disaster is, 1, to set goals for recovery, 2, to gather data, and 3, to identify funding sources for the recovery. And we think that this is so important that we've actually written down guidelines that support local leaders to take these first few steps. And I've brought here our mayor's playbook that I'd like to hand out to you all after I'm finished, that charts in detail just what those steps are. So similarly impacted communities have taken these steps and have charted an effective and prompt recovery. One example of that is Nichols, South Carolina. When Hurricane Matthew hit, 200 homes were flooded in a community that only has about 400 residents. The mayor and the staff promptly pulled together a recovery fund, and they raised funds through drives, t-shirt sales, and donations from local foundations and community groups. With these funds, they set up a home repair program, and they repaired 25 homes for homeowners in the community that could not fund the recovery themselves. Simultaneously, SBP helped them to apply for FEMA's Hazard and Mitigation Grant Program, which secured $1 million in matching funds from the state and unlocked an additional $3 million from FEMA for mitigation and resilience projects. That community is now conducting a hydrology study to assess their risks for future flooding and identify solutions so that Nichols, South Carolina can be built back better and more resilient in the future. So the ask that I have for you all today is threefold. We ask that the city set goals for recovery and set a deadline for when those goals will be announced to the public. We ask that you assign a person responsible with gathering data and provide a report back to the commissioners on the impact and ongoing needs of the community. In order to understand the goals and community resources available to meet those goals, you will need data, and SBP offers their complimentary free service to help you do so, to establish those data sharing agreements with FEMA, SBA, the National Flood Insurance Program, and assistance in interpreting and analyzing that data as needed. And finally, we ask that the city assign a person responsible for identifying all funding sources available to the city for the recovery and a plan to access those resources. And once again, SBP offers our advisory services and assistance in putting together those applications as needed. With that, I'll conclude and turn it over to Commissioner Ashbrook, unless you all have any questions. Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. One, the general overview. Have you been around our community recently and seen what's going on? And were you here earlier for the building department's report on pulling permits? Is that above average? Are we ahead of the curve right now, or would you say there's still a long way to go?
So I have not been in this community as frequently as Mark Smith, who is our manager of disaster advisory services. So I can't speak directly to that. I apologize.
And I think, we met with Mark Smith, and Michael LaCour and Jim, and we talked about setting goals. And I think that we don't need to give up on that. I would love to be able to come to a meeting and have something to tell the public, this is the number we're shooting for, and here's where we are today. A thermometer, if you will, out at the front door saying, here's how close we've gotten. If you can help staff, in setting those goals or identifying those, I think that would be helpful. On your second ask here, that we assign a person responsible for gathering data, I immediately thought we could probably work with Jim McKnight, who works closely with the Emergency Management Office and FEMA. But if you guys can help establish those relationships on what information should we be asking for.
Absolutely.
I think we don't know what we want to know.
Yeah, and so you have Mark Smith and myself at your disposal to assist with that. When it comes to asking for data and actually submitting applications, it does have to come from the local level, so it has to have local leadership involved, but we can absolutely provide our support in putting those reports together.
And as far as identifying funding sources, we do have an RFQ out for a grant writer. I think the closing day on that is the 15th of March, so we'll have some bids to open up, and we will select a company or an individual to do that for us as well, which I would love to get that person in touch with you or Mark Smith to give a list of grants they need to be looking for. So I appreciate you coming out, and if anyone here has any questions for her, I'm going to keep calling you and Mark, but I do appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Are you still based out of Apalachicola, or are you in town?
So we've moved actually into Bay County, and we've begun rebuilding in Panama City. But there is some overlap where we extend to some degree out this way.
Any other questions?
What about your contact information?
I have that. I can pass it out unless you want to give it to everybody.
I'm happy to share as needed, by all means.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And what you've given us, could you give one to our city manager?
Thank you so much.
The next item we have, Mayor, is in reference to affordable housing. Affordable Housing Solutions of Florida is looking to put in an application. Appears that the state of Florida has set aside approximately $30 million for affected counties in reference to helping out with affordable housing. We actually have a representative here today that's here to answer any question you may have. But what they're looking is get in the application and have your consideration for a fee waiver. But I will turn it over to Ms. Jackie to come and give you exactly all the details.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jackie McPhillips, and I'm a board member of Affordable Housing Solutions for Florida. If my voice starts quivering, forgive me. It's been a while since I made a presentation. Affordable Housing Solutions is about a 26-year-old nonprofit affordable housing, workforce housing developer. We've developed all over the state of Florida. As Mr. Anderson said, the state of Florida has decided, instead of spending the normal funds in the home program, last year they rolled it over to this year, doubled the money specifically for 9 counties affected from Hurricane Michael. The application just came out the end of February. It's due deadline by the end of March 26. One of the major criteria that's going to separate one application from another will be match funds. The state's looking at what is the local government, do they want this development to go forward and so forth. That's why we respectfully request a fee waiver, partial fee waiver. We estimate if we did 2-inch lines for the apartment complex, which would consist of 27 units, we're proposing probably 2 buildings. Great location, we think, on Long Avenue, directly across from your schools. I think parents and families would be very happy. I have met with the Gateway Apartments, which was built out of the same loan program, and they have a rather lengthy waiting list. So that's what I'm requesting, and trying to think if there's any other really important factors. We have the home experience, we have all the affordable housing experience, so we look very good on paperwork as far as the criteria, except for match, which is, like I said, going to be one of the biggest ones. We would expect out of $30 million, the maximum anyone applicant could request is $5 million. So therefore, there should be probably 6, maybe 7 positive or successful applications. Because of the amount of 2 years, we expect quite a few more applicants than the normal years. And we know for sure Bay County is getting 1. The state has stated that they do not want to give any one county more than 1. So they're going to try and spread the monies to at least 6, hopefully at least 6 different counties out of the 9. And hopefully Gulf County will be one of them. Is there questions? I'd be more than happy to answer. I did give Mr. Anderson a copy of the resume for Affordable Housing Solutions showing who we are, what we've done, and so forth.
How are you aware that Bay County will indeed get one?
Because they had a workshop before they came out with their application. I attended orally that you could, and there was an applicant, and I believe it was probably a tax credit, who mentioned that he had over 200 units ready to go. And because you can't request more than 50 units in the application, he says, I can do an elderly, I can do a family, we're ready to go. And he also asked them to do a mortgage revenue bond loan program attached to this, which I did not think they would do on such short notice, but lo and behold, the application came out. Bay County can request that. So it seems to me they're going to fund one. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
And where's the location is going to be?
It's on Long Avenue, right next to your water tower.
Yeah, it's between
Right
the
across the heavily treed site, directly across from the elementary school, just down a little bit from the high school.
And it'll be like local builders and construction workers?
We would,
could be
as
involved
much
in
as
making-
possibly can. I just personally went through Irma, so I feel for all the citizens here. My house was destroyed during Irma down in Marathon. So it took me multiple months to try and even get contractors to come out. They're all supply and demand. They're all so busy. Obviously, the construction costs kept climbing because as a result of that, since this is affordable housing, yes, we would use as much local as possible, thus, you know, their estimates were so far out that we couldn't do it.
I mean, I feel like this board, we've always said, we understand that we have a problem with housing. The governor has identified that as a very large problem in the state. In our community, I think there is still a need for affordable housing. I think that the greater need is also going to be workforce housing. And the reason I say that is the process of getting into one of those PACES Foundation units is very lengthy, and they went through about 400 or 500 applicants to come up with 50 people that qualified.
Really?
The guidelines are very strict. Maybe after the 2020 census, it'll be a little bit easier, more realistic income levels. I support this 100%. I think that we need to be forward-thinking. What can we do to incentivize more? How can we incentivize private entity to come in and not take advantage of the state and federal dollars? How can we sweeten the pot and get housing that we can get in the range of $600 to $800 rent? I think that's a huge need for our community, and this is a step. We still need more affordable housing. There is a waiting list.
And I personally, because I've spoken to so many communities, so my heart's in affordable workforce housing, and there is that extra step up that I wish the government would come up with, like school teachers.
Yeah.
And so many people, there are some of them just over that income qualifications that we can't help. But I know there's whole nother need there as well. This pretty much covers those that fall within, and of course the incomes are based on the county's median income and the number of people in the household. But there's definitely another need there that I wish we could satisfy, and I'm not sure exactly how to get them to come up with something.
Well, I think we all agree we need more housing, that's for sure. And this is the way to go or not, I'm not sure, but we definitely want to look at it. We definitely need housing.
Like I said, when I met with Gateway, they told me they had additional qualified applicants, but they were on a wait list, so they were full and they couldn't assist more.
So today, we need to take action to either approve or reject the proposal of the 30% waiver.
Yes,
I'll make a
sir.
motion today that we do indeed support the waiver
I'll
of
second.
30%.
All right, we got a motion from Commissioner Hosmer, and a second from Commissioner Ashbrook. Any further discussion on the board? Any opposition to the motion? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to know, the state is, after reviewing all the applications, will announce at their May 10th board meeting the successful applicants that they'll invite into underwriting. And so we'll be back with you on May 10th or May 11th to let you know if we're successful. I hope we will. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item we have is a reference to 2 lease agreements. At our last meeting, it was discussed about the Northport St. Joe Project Area Coalition trying to locate a spot to build a building. The location that was discussed is the breezeway between Minnie Likely's classroom she utilizes to help children in the afternoon and the Washington Gym. There is on page 10 through 19, there is a draft lease agreement for your consideration today on that piece of property there. And then the second one is actually a continuation extension for the Washington Improvement Group. That was a yearly. One thing I did talk with Attorney Albritton was on this one, if we could possibly do where both parties mutually agree that we can extend instead of having to come back to you every year with the one like we have for the Washington Improvement Group. But both of those are there for your consideration today.
On the first one, the build-out is at the expense of the PAC, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have no objection to that whatsoever.
What is staff's recommendation on both leases?
Staff would recommend approving both of these at this point in time.
Would you approve of the modification of the automatic renewal?
Yes, sir, that would be with the automatic renewal modification by Attorney Albritton would be our recommendation.
Motion to approve both leases.
All right. Your motion
I
is on both leases?
didn't have a motion, he did. I'll second
Oh, I
it.
thought you did. All right. Commissioner Hoffman is on both leases, right?
Yeah, let's just do
All right,
them
you
both at the
second?
same time.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries 4-0.
We will work on those and get those out to the appropriate parties for signatures on those. The next item we have is Clifford Sims Park. Public Works has been working through it. The park was officially opened back up on Monday. Still got a little bit of work to be done, but considering what we went through with the storm, we're happy to have it back operational. Also, Attorney Albritton is working with the St. Joe Company on the boat dockage on there. I don't know if you got an update or not today, but we are working through that to try to accommodate the Fishing Express.
Yes, after the last regular meeting we were all at, I again followed up with counsel for the St. Joe Company and spoke to Ms. Walters. Ms. Walters did not present any hard objections. She just wanted to be looped in on what a plan was, what was going to happen, and so that there was no crossover between the two entities. She even said that she would check with her people in ways that she could support the community, and and ultimately wanted to make sure that there was nothing detrimental that would affect environmentally either party. So it appears that St. Joe does not have a specific objection. They just want to make sure that there's no crossover, no issue between the two parties that are out there working at the same time using it. One of the issues she brought up was the depth at the proposed location where the housing of the boat. It was her understanding that the depth is not adequate at this time, but with all that being said, she's said that she would offer her support in putting this together so that there would be an opportunity for charter boats to dock one way or the other. And she offered St. Joe Services to see what they can do to support the city in this matter. So I think ultimately we're moving full steam ahead on that.
Any other questions on that? We'll continue working then. The last item I have today is RFP 2019, which is the Keeper's Quarters roof. We have went out to bid. We've asked SHPO from the state for their approval and make sure bid and specs and everything is appropriate with them. We did get in bids and they came in at $40,000. It's on page 27. We also have received commitment from insurance company in reference to $67,000 for the two structures. so it would be enough to cover the cost of the roof at this point. Staff recommendation will be to go ahead and get these roofs put on. Ms. Pierce is also working on a grant from the Lighthouse Association to get additional funding to fix some of the stuff that was already replaced last year again. But we are hopeful that this will cover most of the items that would be needed to get the lighthouse structures operational again.
Jim, if we spend that 40, that leaves 27,000. Are we gonna try to hang on to that in case that requires a match? The grants?
That would be at this point in time, what we'd like to do is just fix the roof, secure the premises, and then to, yes, sir, use the money, apply for the grant, work through the grant. Hopefully we'll know in May if we got it, but yes, sir, that would be the thought right now, this whole
Motion to attack the low bidder, Lewis Walker Roofing.
All right, we got a motion from Commissioner Ashbrook. Second, Commissioner Hoffman. Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries 4-0.
That's all I have.
That's you, Jim? All right, John?
Mayor, I do not have anything unless the board has questions for me.
How we moving on our ball fields? It's good time to play ball. Looking all right?
They are. We're still, working through the softball field too. We were able to spread some dirt yesterday and a few days ago prior to the rain, so we're hoping to get seed on that before the end of the week, and it'll be playable. As far as the lights and all the electricity, all of that's operational, ready to go.
Did you look at that one I asked you about that was?
I did. It does have a little list to it. It's the one, I'm not sure what we can do on that, given this location.
Yeah. Okay. All right, any questions for John? All right, Larry?
Yes, sir. Just one thing. The CCR has been completed, and there were no violations to report this past year to DEP. Just let you know.
Great.
Yes, sir. That's all I have.
Any questions for Larry? Any questions? All right, wastewater.
We'll be shutting down the district filtration unit for a couple of days. The stainless steel filters that we ordered are in, so we're going to shut down and start replacing filters. And we'll be back up and running, but everything else is functional. So
How about the things that control the algae?
the sonic disruptors
or whatever?
Right. The disruptors, what we're looking at is tying into the solar bees because we don't have power around the lagoon. So that's one of the things I've got Bob working on now is he's going to try to tie in the first one as an experiment. And if we can keep that one running, then we'll just tie in disruptors with sonic to the solar bees. They'll be solar powered, so we won't have to run power. That's an expense. We just don't have to.
Well, I just knew the other day you said we were already starting to see some algae bloom.
Yeah. It's sooner than normal because the weather's been a little weird, but yeah, we didn't expect it for another month and a half or so, but we've got algae popping up. It's not right now because it got a little cool, but we did have it pop up, so we're working on it.
And the sludge deal on the bottom we're working on?
We've started the process. They've charged the lagoon twice since they established the colony. They'll hit it in 2 weeks from last Saturday. They'll hit it again, and then there'll be a monthly service after that. That should be enough to start mitigation process of our sludge. But it's started. It's working like so far. It's working. So.
All right, Mike, here for the finance. Let's go to you, Chief. Let's get you on up here.
I don't have anything there.
Was you on up here?
He's gonna be able.
How's everything going?
Good. I have nothing on the agenda unless the board has questions for me.
Any questions for the chief? Are we down an officer right now, or we up to?
We have a position that's not filled.
Okay, we're just hanging on to that for a while
Yes,
while we're in this recovery.
Jim and I agreed to wait till July and see what some preliminary numbers were before we made any decisions on filling.
All right. Okay, thank you, sir. City engineer?
Yes, sir. Mayor, commissioners, sidewalk project started yesterday. If you go by there, you'll see they've got a showing going on, so it'll be 30, 45 days. They should
Say that again?
knock that out. There's a lot of things to see going on in your riding by. There's a lot happening, but so that should move pretty quickly. We talked a couple weeks ago about your Scott grant application for the coming year, and we do need a decision from you today on which road you'd like to apply for that grant program.
And Jim, I think, didn't you mention to me that there was already one that we applied for last time, and it's already ready-made, and we could just resubmit for the first?
First
Yes,
Street.
that was the one that Mr. Smallwood did apply for last year, yes.
And that was from 98 to 71, that's what that was. It's a good project if you still want to apply for that. This is a program that you're only going to get funded about every third year. If you're lucky, it's just dollar amount versus how many people are turning in for it kind of thing. But it's board decision.
If that's staff recommendation, I'm not opposed to it. The chances of us getting that are slim this year. I'll make a motion to go with First Street.
All right, we got a motion, Commissioner Ashbrook.
I second it.
And a second from Commissioner Langston. Any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries forward.
Met last week with FEMA, Friday maybe with FEMA down at Frank Fake Park looking at the city pier. And so they've started their process, whatever that is, disaster declaration or something like that. But nonetheless, it's in the process with FEMA. We went over obviously what was damaged at the pier and what needs to be fixed and how we plan on fixing it. And so that's in the process with FEMA with that. And then on the Bud Griffin Lake, Deuter Park bridges and things, we're going to wrap that up next week and be ready to advertise that to get some prices on it. The trail lighting grant, the state has asked for more information. We're working through that list of information of them. And then I don't have any dates on 8th Street, the contract. I'm waiting on the contractor. It's on them whenever they can get to it and get started on it. So as soon as I know that, I'll communicate it. Those are my updates.
All right, any other questions for Clay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Code enforcement update is in your packet. I'm sure everybody has a chance to look at it, see what all's going on in the city as far as code enforcement goes. Ms. Charlotte, you have anything today?
Commissioner Ashbrook had already mentioned the change in the voting place, but that has been advertised on our website, in the paper, and on any notices that publicly posted about it.
Okay.
Also this morning I had a call from Melissa Durham in Senator Montfort's office. She sent me a quick email and asked me to share it with you. And it says Senator Montfort is inviting local officials to stand in solidarity with him and Senator Gainer as they announce a $400 million Hurricane Michael relief package for affected counties. The press conference will be held at 12:30 Eastern Time on Thursday, March the 7th, in front of the Senate chambers. Please allow time for parking and to get through security in the main Capitol building. Please be on the 4th floor of the Capitol building by 12:15. And she will forward a press release as soon as they have it ready. But this would be something to the city, the counties, whatever, until they hear from FEMA. It's not a handout, it's just sort of let you use it till you get your repayment, from what we understand at this point. And she was asking for everyone's support that could to be there. That's all I have.
Any questions from Ms. Charlotte from anybody? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, this time we're going to go to the citizens in the audience that would like to speak. We will be doing a 3-minute speak. So the lady that was in the back, is she still up here? Come on up.
Hi, everyone, McGinja, and this is PSJRA information and background. Your 20,000 that you asked about, where it came from. It was a resolution by the board when the board was independent from there. That was the maximum amount of money that the board could authorize without going before the full commission in order to get a project done. And it was specifically allocated to be used as matching funds for grants for the expansion area, for whether it was CDBG or anything like that, or grants to rework the plan, because the plan was incorporated into the same book. So that was how that amount became. It was a resolution, and it can be changed by another resolution, just so you know. What I noticed when y'all were having a discussion, Commissioner Langston conflated several issues okay? And Mr. Chester talked about the baseline moving, and the baseline doesn't move. So I would suggest, because I don't think any of you are on the board or even in attendance, back the last time Carol Westmoreland gave a workshop explaining exactly what the rules are, because it is a state statute, so you have to follow those rules. You can't make stuff up, okay? You can't violate those rules. So I would suggest that we have a workshop, a public workshop with Carol Westmoreland. She's very clear when she gives the information, gives all of you a chance to ask questions. And she's pretty much the definitive expert in Florida for CRAs and League of Cities business.
Yeah, I invited her to yesterday's workshop, but she was unable to attend.
Yeah, she's, because she covers, there's 200 and something CRAs.
Right.
So, but she will set up a workshop for people to come to, and particularly an evening workshop where citizens can come as well, because people are confused about what's going on with it. Okay? Thank you.
Linda, if you want this copy, she actually gave this to Bill to put in all of her boxes. It is the presentation that she would give to
I've
us.
actually seen this 3 times.
If you want to put that out.
But yes, yeah, so, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Raise your hand high. Come on, I'll see you first.
Christy McElroy, Woodward Avenue. I just wanted everyone to know and make the announcement that I am throwing my hat in the arena, and I'm going to be a candidate for mayor. So appreciate y'all, and look forward to town hall meetings with you, Mayor, and with Rex Bezet, so that we can have active participation from the voters. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? See anyone else out there that I'm not seeing? All right. Commissioner Langston, we'll go with you first.
Yes, I just want to say that the summer program is about to start with workforce. And what about the Stackhouse, Jim? Is that ready to go?
Currently, right now, they're in transition, Commissioner Langston. To my understanding, the Methodist Church has secured a new location, so they're going to be changing. But yes, sir, it won't be long. We need to start putting that together. The roofers, I did speak with the roofers. They should be starting shortly on the Washington Gym. So yes, sir, we've got some work to be done. But yes, we are glad to summer program.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I've got nothing, Mayor.
All right, you don't have anything? Commissioner Hoffman?
The only thing I have, I recognize little Randy in the audience, and he just spurred my memory. The question was, we have some people that are interested in the chippings when they chip up the trees, ash grit. Do you know, Jim, where that's going, and can citizens or others get access to those chips?
I don't know all the details, Commissioner Hoffman. I believe it's being done, if I'm not mistaken, at the previous landfill site. I can contact the county to see. Now, Mr. Grantland may have some things. I'll get with Mr. Grantland too. I know we were just briefly talking about different types of mulches and things we may or may not have, but I'll make some phone calls to find out.
Yeah, if we can find out if they're gonna give those away, it'd be a benefit to, I guess, several people, this time of year especially. That's all I got.
All right, I only have one thing, and it's to do with all the wiring that's laying on the ground, that's laying in the road. We're trying to get whoever it belongs to pick it up. And it's gotta be Duke, Consolidated, or Mediacom. One of those three. And, I mean, it's all over town. And I get calls constantly on it. I've talked with Jim about it. He's tried to contact some people, but somehow, some way, we need to get that wired up.
Where at though?
It's all over town. This side of town, the other side of town. On 10th Street, lady called me just yesterday about one on 10th Street, and I haven't been by there to look at it today, but I'm going. And she says it's just hanging all down in her yard, and people just want it taken away, and I think it's time it should be taken away. These companies just need to face up to what they left on the ground and pick it up and carry on, but we need it off the ground. Eddie, you seen much of it on your side of town?
Everybody did. It's Mediacom.
We even have at the ball field behind the jail, Commissioner Langston and I talked about, they got a pole down, they got a wire coming straight to that pole with the lights from the field and everything. The lights are down in the field, the lights are twisted around on the poles, and definitely need to look at that, especially one that's on the ground. I'm not sure whether that's a hot wire or not.
So Jim, I just ask you again, you know, whatever we can do to try to get it up, I mean, all we can do is call, and nobody wants to admit it's theirs.
If we can get an address to Mayor, what I would do is then I can start telling specific locations together too. So if anybody has specific locations, they'll get that to me. I'll put that in the email to them too.
All right. Okay, sounds like a good idea. And that's all I have. I just need a motion to adjourn. A motion? Got a second.